Good afternoon. Welcome to Politica Show on Lions Wire. After taking a break for several months, we are back in business and we are planning to bring our listeners a new series of interviews and lectures about Israeli geopolitics and history. And we are hopeful that we'll be able to bring novel perspective and analysis on contemporary events and historic events. Our permanent guest is a renowned political scientist, Ilya Levkov. Ilya, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure. Ilya, we are starting new series, and today is going to be first interview in that series of lectures. Let's talk about what's happening in Israel and Israeli role in the world. It's quickly changing.
Extremely changing. Yes, it's amazingly changing. You know, uh, you might know who is John Reed. John Reed was an American communist who came to the Soviet Union in 1918, 1718. In any case, in his memoirs, he writes that he was passing by a stand where the announcement were uh, glued to, and he tore it down and he said, "Here I have 2 months of the Russian history." So in the same vein, you know, uh, I would like to clarify a little bit what are my intentions, because this is the best thing in teaching as in personal connections. So I thought to speak about the history of Israel from a special perspective, i.e., said what happened to this tiny land with a tiny group of people, 600 were in 1948, and many of them were newcomers, never were soldiers, didn't know how to shoot. They were even sent to Latrun on the way to Jerusalem, and many of them have been fallen. And there was, well, about not such a nitty gritty. I will not scare you with it. But however, I have 12 chapters that they will bring by topic from which angle I am looking. And the general heading is Israel stages of growing beyond the regional power.
Yeah.
That is how this tiny group of people with a special spirit, with a special unique ideology, with intent to reclaim the land, reclaim the culture, reclaim the language. They started under zero, under. So this is unusual to see how come in the last 70 years, under what circumstances, what were the things that shaped Israel, what successes they had, what errors, what was the main uh, political, social debate in the country, and also uh, what were the lessons? The lessons that have been driven is the most important underpinning element. You know, this way I will not go with you always in nitty gritty. This you could gather somewhere, but the concept said how the Israelis were able to get to the point where are they today. As a preamble to this, I want to remind you a nation, such a classical European nations, when did they become a nation state? And it was not long ago at all. There were a variety of principalities and things of that order. Germany, that is, Italy, began in 1861 and ended somewhere 1871. So from 1871, what do we have? 130, 150 years. That is, Israel is just uh, half of their history. So we can see that how those states were created. Well, we will not go into it, but how they developed, how they controlled, how they became empires. Once again, it's a background. And thereafter, now we see their sunset. It's unbelievable. Once again, the sunset is teaching us about the history to the unbelievable degrees. Um, there was once a TV program. It was a British program. It was called The Ascent of Man. It was brought by Professor, oh my gosh, just in a moment I will have it, Bronowski. And Professor Bronowski really gave an unbelievable lecture how the Britain became a power. It's a very, very, if you find it, remember, I'm sure you could find it. It's called The Ascent of Man. Though the main thing was, the accent was on England. Now, Israel is not that is compared to many other countries, Israel is not that already young. That is 77. We have 150, give and take. Let's round it the number. 150 years, give and take. Italy became a state. Germany became a state. And Israel is just half of their so-called nation state history, because there were principalities and they got united and didn't have the truth. So on one hand, Israel considered to be very, very young, yeah, but in a different age, that is, let's say, post World War II. Remember, we have now 193 countries, and when they were voting, there were around 67, 68 countries in the United Nations in 1948. So, given this all, I would like you to have it all at your background because this what I will be accentuating. Now, I'll start with Israel. Israel has solved many problems that no other countries have solved their problems in such magnitude as Israel in the last 77 years. Israel solved actually the technology, so-called, of Israel, from which Israel has begun. Could you tell me, what would you guess? What was the technology that Israelis brought in the end of 19th century to Palestine?
Pump, perhaps, or a
Pump,
cactus? Well, both, I
pump,
think.
pump.
Did they not
Water
start with cactuses, trying to
No,
dry up the land?
no. There's cactus is the wild plant. There's nothing. That's pump which function in both directions. One, it dried out the swamp plant, which was in Israel, and the other one, the irrigation. So it was on one hand to dry the swamp and then make it of it soil on which to grow various vegetables and fruits, and thus becoming self-sufficient because there was a limited, by the way, if somebody could check what was the diet, it was very, very limited. There were few cows. They were not many horses because they belonged to people, either to a military, be it the Turkish people that lived there or the Arabs. The Israelis had none of it. And as a matter of fact, one of the first things that scared the Arab population was to see a Jew riding a horse. For them, it was unbelievable. They felt that it was their domain. What's interesting, and excuse me that I divert after every sample because I don't read from a script. It was in the Russian literature. The prominent Jewish author is Isaac Babel. He has a line in one of the plays where he was drafted into the army, and he came Lovka. He's the brat of Benny Creek, the legendary character.
Creek, yep.
Benny Creek. He's the brother of Benny Creek, and he came to the wedding of their sister Dvoire, and there, and he's in uniform, and then that is the elder of the family, etc., begin either point of interest. Here, the Jew that comes home for the wedding. Usually they would draft some often Jews, and for 25 years with no monthly or yearly visit home. So one of them says, he says, why can't you be a day or two late to your regiment? After all, it's your sister getting married. He says, you don't understand. He said, the discipline in the army. That they will really, 3 generals with orders from the Turkish war, they will judge me, and I'm afraid to think what they will do. So one of the elders says, is it because you are a Jew? And then this Lovka answers, you are crazy old Jew. You have to understand, a Jew who sat on a horse ceased to be a Jew. I will, those who, well, no, I will not venture into the Russian because, but it's one of the most powerful sentences. And those powerful sentences are indicators what has happened in Palestine. But I will run an introductory note of today, a list of things that Israel has solved during the last 77 years like no other country. And the first one would be, of course, the water independence. That is, we're already beyond the local irrigation, etc. Water independence. That is, Israel turned sea into a sweet water. Desert. You will not believe how in a dry desert in the Negev and any other places, you have instruments that provide about 1,500 gallons of sweet water out of the air. The condensation and all the Bolyot-Marriott and all that physics. But the point is that today, Israel first of all, Israel provides Jordan with plenty of water that comes from the north, Yarmouk, where the dam is. But in addition to this is a water independence which was improved much more. How they came to the idea was inventor, an Israeli inventor, invented something, but what was the first try? He saw a line of trees that were growing, and they were bushes plus, but one tree was about 10 feet tall. So he was wondering what is it. He actually came, unearthed it, and he saw that there was a pipe next to him, passing next to that tree, perpendicularly now, and it was corrosion, and it leaked water drop by drop, and this idea hit him, and 60 years later, he really came out with a drop irrigation because, as you know, there were you could have a kind of a channel, not a deep one, to irrigate your crops, and thereafter you have those uh, irrigating things that you know the
Small tubes, pipes,
pardon,
small
no,
pipes.
beyond the pipes. That was the one central part. I'll tell you, I used it for years in my agricultural high school. There would be, let's say, an exit to which you would connect aluminium pipes, and they could be interconnected. And every also 20, well, more, 30 feet at least, there would be a mechanism that would spray, and it will turn around 360 degrees.
Yeah.
And then we would have to irrigate for 2-3 hours, and then to disconnect this line, move it to the next exit, you know, and once again put them together and open the faucet, so-called faucet. Yeah, the water. In any case, at this situation, that was over 90 to 95 water was wasted. And it was wasted
You mean
until
90 to 95% of water wasted?
correct, yes,
Yeah.
was wasted, evaporated for no use, be it trees or be it vegetables or whatever, you know. So, in the fruit. So this was the first breakthrough how Israel really came. The next level, and once again, I have a personal experience. This was this to distill the water. The problem, the technologies were known. I remember the first Israeli technologist was in the 50s, in the late 50s. He wanted to sweeten how to sweeten the seawater from salts.
You mean
And he,
this is desalinization technology, right?
yeah. And then in first of all you have to have the water, the sweet water, you know. So we already spoke of techniques of irrigation. Now, by the way, this inventor from a kibbutz, he set up a company, and the company is functioned in some 70, 80 countries. The subtleties, I don't want to go into these. It's not as simple a hole in a pipe, you know. There is something local distributor when the drops falls into this instrument, and then it release a drop every 3 or 5 minutes, you see, kind of a local timer
Mm-hmm.
for each drop, for each hole. So, but the question is, where do you get the water? The first stage was the national channel. The national channel that went from North Kinneret to the south. And this was once again open. Most of it was part covered and part open. And this is distribute the waters to, let's say, half of Israel, northern part of Israel. But once again, how do you use it to utilize it? And then we went with a drop technologies that I explained. But first of all, you have to have the water. The water, so I said, Israel had it this. Now that Zarhi had an instrument which doable, which can be done on many methods. The question is, what is the cost? That is, you're taking the water and you evaporate it. So you have to put in energy, and the energy has to heat this water that you, and thereafter you are getting a certain amount of water, and you count how much energy was needed to implement this process, and if the cost of energy to implement was prohibitive, then the cost of water was prohibitive. And but this already Israel faced in the late 50s. Later on, they decided not to warm somehow or to create a local solution. There are certain filters that is under pressure. You create a certain filters and you push the seawater through those filters. So to push the water through those filters, it's much, much less expensive, as I said, through evaporation or heating the water, evaporating and then condensing and collecting it. This way, now Israel has a plenty of water. Listen, imagine how many, if there are 600,000 people required water then, and you have to also conserve the water. The matter of fact, conserve the water. Let me tell you another personal story. I coming to United States after the 6-day war. I buy a cargo ship. Never mind. I met friends of my parents, which I didn't know about them when I left, and there was no communication. I could send letters from the cities that we docked, but not from receiver. In any case, I came to a guy in his apartment, and it was what a hundred. It was 100 years to Canada Expo and all those things. And I went in and I said, "Oh, do you need a shower?" I said, "Well, I'll take a shower." As I started the shower, suddenly I hear that he knocks on the door. What happened? What happened? And then I realized what happened. In Israel, when you showered, and we showered, let's say, every day in our school after work, you would wet yourself a little bit, switch off the water, uh, use soap yourself, and then only you put it to rinse it without wasting another drop of water. So I told him, listen, nothing happened. I simply foaming myself, soaping with soap. I will use the water sparingly thereafter. So he was flabbergasted that I came to Canada. I came through Canada on the way to Chicago, but he was thrilled, and I remember my first lesson to understand. That is, I could understand myself how my behavior, natural behavior of Israeli, to save every drop, and this was also a national slogan: "Save every drop." So it was a natural thing for us to go through this. And now, when we have these technologies, forgive me, though I feel easy calling myself still Israelis. So this problem was solved. Now the question is, think about the water, think about the energy. So the question is, how many people? That is 600. The state of Israel, it was about close to grew 12 times over of the original 600 people, 600,000. 600,000 people, let's say Israelis, Jews, let's say, if it's
That
not.
was in 47.
Pardon?
In 47, 48.
Yeah,
That's the
48. Yeah,
population. Yeah.
yeah. So now let's say 12 million. It's now not 12. Now it's a 8 plus. Let's call it
The
not
total
not half.
population is 10 and a half, but I think it's eight and a
Yeah.
half Jews.
No,
Like,
they over 10 million, and even it goes over 10 million. So the Jews will be
eight
eight
plus.
plus
Yeah.
something. So in any case, so 12 times, which country of those who were in need of water has increased their resources 12 times? So we see here now the water doesn't end, because what do we have after the war? When we have the water in abundance, we have agriculture. And Israel doubled the territory of soil, converting the variety of things. Once again, with those developments, to double, not to mention that Israel has those special the special big areas where they are growing the fruits and vegetables and all that in hot houses.
Mhm.
So this way, the percentage of food, vegetables, and flowers made Israel to export even those things for years already. For many years, Israel exported. Moreover than that, let me see. I things are coming to my memory. I have a friend who invented how to a machine, how to pick up flowers and bundle them to make it, less labor intensive process, because Israel, that is the first things it went, it was the factories and other things, but uh, so there were no surplus of working people. This way, they were able to increase their export and make it cost competitive. The other thing is the food production. I don't want to go now into nitty gritty how much from the acre. I can tell you that in old days, the water, the acre, 1 acre of tomato was in Israel about, it's from my memory, I didn't check it now. In any case, about 200, no, there were about 2 tons. Let's say the Israelis had, because of watering, which I explained to you,
Mhm.
about 2,000 uh, kilograms, or 2 tons. However, the Arab sector, who didn't have this, they were about 10 times less, because they depended on the irrigations in that coming from the sky.
Mhm.
So actually, Israelis preferred, and the price was almost the same. So the Israelis, first of all, when we go to the market, they would ask, where are your tomatoes from? If they preferred to buy the tomatoes which were less watery from Arabs sent from the Israelis.
Mhm.
There was another element, harvesting sky. I hope you know my intimate knowledge
Harvesting
of.
sky.
Yes, sky. That's right. The clouds, harnessing
Oh
clouds.
yes,
So,
yeah.
so what do you do? They had in a particular spots in Israel special ovens that should, in particular spots, uh, they had to be ignited with the magnesium. They would put some some chemical. This cloud from chemical, not clouds, the air would go up to the loaded cloud, and the clouds would release uh,
Water.
water, right? So this was, kind of a nitty-gritty manipulation and milking the clouds, which also, to what extent, has helped it. Uh, as I said, the food were completely. Now we have another many sectors. I just would go 2-3 points to point you to which extent Israel went solved their systemic problems that limited the number of people that can live on that tiny piece of land. So food I mentioned to you. So then now it's a new technology. The new technologies that took place, but this will be a chapter on this, a separate, and the export. The last one invention is, of course, in the military. Israel had no Israel could produce, let's say, buses, but only the upper part with the seats and the walls and
Yeah.
the ceiling. The rest of it would get imported. There was no tanks, Israeli tanks. There was nothing. As a matter of fact, I remember the things that when Israel in the independence war were tried to scare the Egyptians, and they had about, I don't know, 3.5 airplanes. So they would take those bottles with
Coke.
with the gases, bottle with gases.
Coca-Cola, I think it was.
Yeah, and they would simply fly over and throw it over the Egyptian soldiers.
Positions, yeah, I've
Hopefully,
heard of it.
so it will blow it up and scare them. Now, but they were the pilot. All the pilots were trained before in England, as you know. It's a separate story, but they call them push it. And that some of the Israelis that were behind, not like that pilot, couldn't understand. Finally, he told him, Pushkin it. True stories of the war, from the War of Independence. In any case, we have now, there were one spot in Israel where they were called industrial region. It's somewhere between Haifa and Akko, and it was called. And they could prepare only steel plates, nothing making out of it. As a matter of fact, the first car that was an Israeli car that was assembled was made out personal car was made out of fiberglass.
And was it not based on
Oh, now
Volvo?
it's based now. Well, now Israel didn't go into
Yeah,
doing competition with all the industrial giants that they have. You need. Speaking about this, one of the problem that what I gave you mostly. Then the military, the ammunition. They think the ammunition in
but
1970s.
the car, Israel attempted to build their own car. I think it was in 70s,
No, it was before. It was in the
60s,
late 50s.
late
And it was
50s.
called, as a matter of fact, there was a national championship. Suggest a name. And the name that was won was Susita. Susita is derivative from sus, horse. It's kind of like a mechanical horse,
Mechanical course,
And
yeah.
what's interesting is I knew personally he was in our school, our Soviet, and he suggested that thing where he got wrote Susita, and he was among the few winners that suggested this name. And I even remember the presents that he got. Present was the ball pen, which is called Parker. You remember? There was
Yeah.
such a company, Parker. It was kind of a top of the top, and everybody. It has an arrow, the holding outside. It's a metal arrow in the shape of metal in the shape of an arrow. So that what was going on. But once again, now Israel is on a path to provide their own ammunition to tanks, ammunition to cannons, ammunition to, and then to expand, of course, to the machine guns. So because it was neglected, because there was a stage said there will be no major wars, there will be only encounters, and for this we can Israel doesn't need the traditional tanks so much, the cannons and all that, and it would be this was the problem that brought it started all the thing despite after Yom Kippur War, and that was one of the problems that the committees will be checking what would happen. So in 73, simply, those huge American transport, they would bring those cannon shells for cannons and for tanks in the evening, at night. In the morning, they were shooting them and using, because Israel really had no bottom to scrap even, To that degree, Israel was dependent on the other. And this happens the same thing on October 7. And there was a public outcry because it became a secret that Israel doesn't have enough ammunition to fight the war. It was also one of the reasons that they Israeli postponed the invasion into Gaza for 2 weeks in order to gain those things. But it was a secret. Nobody should have known. But as you know, in Israel, there are no secrets. People who talk to God, they might know, they gather information. And it was in the Knesset. It was not just a newspaper, It was in the Knesset, and very, very kind of a active, super active member of the Tali Gottlieb. Ali Gottlieb, she was giving government a problem, says, why don't you tell us the truth that we don't have enough ammunition to fight, And this happened just it. And now Israel, as you know, the top of it, have the race, and you don't need a shell. You can use things, the no, ray, not the X-ray, but ray, where you can shoot a ray of cannons, like from many things, and the cost of it's about up to $2 a shot, instead of throwing rockets to stop another rocket. It costs $10,000. So that was the problem. The Hamas and Palestinian homemade rockets, or not so homemade, Iranian-made rockets, cost them practically nothing because it was paid. And Israel had several years of fighting. Yes, they discovered that system, how to know which rocket, Palestinian rocket, where it will fall. And it's during the flight, during this nanoseconds, and then divided them into two parts. One said, knowingly it will fall where no people and no houses. The other one said it will fall indeed
somewhere in the desert.
Yeah. So therefore they separated them instantly, and then send the anti-rocket that costs about over $10,000 each shot, and even more sometimes. So This way, once again, this was adaptation, adaptation, adaptation. It's a kind of I think Darwin would have been proud of the Israelis, how they adapted themselves in those
Evolved.
77 years.
Yes.
I would like to end all this. We'll talk topic by topic on one of those. I would like to end my survey with mentioning a couple of books that I advise you to get your hand on it. They all can be bought at a second-hand store. The first one, it's called From War to War. Write it. Can you see that?
Yeah. Arab-Israeli
From war to
confrontation,
war.
48-67.
The Arab-Israeli confrontation, 1948-67, and it's written by Nadav Safran, who was a professor at Harvard, and who wrote several other things. He wrote, I shall tell you, author of Egypt in Search of Political Community, the United States and Israel Today, a profile. What's interesting, going over it, I just always look where, here I have even the date. I thought I don't have.
This book was published by Liberty?
No,
It's not your book. Okay.
No, it's not my book. God forbid. No, not God forbid. I would be proud to publish it. It was published in 67, that is including 68. Very interesting because he analyzed country by country separate. However, what I found, I bought this book from Columbia University. That is the books that they didn't want already. They would offer it to students for $1 or $2 a book. So, and I bought it in October 1970. What's interesting is he is an Israeli, and being a professor at Harvard, he was not pro-Israeli. However, he was not anti-Israeli. In 1970, there were already plenty of political international movements and organizations that in a way demanded to take or required to take anti-Israeli position. So this, I think, why they really offer this book as outdated. You understand? That is, it's only 3 years after it was published, it became outdated, and Columbia University decided to throw. By the way, I took one course at Columbia, doctoral level. It was a professor, I remember him all. He was so objective that it really, God forbid, there was nothing pro-Israeli in it, though his name was Horowitz. I remember his even initials, J.C. Horowitz, and he was so authoritarian in his lectures, I think, that we called him J.C. a la J.C. you know who. So I have 2 other books. I really beg you to get this. This is you should know Michael Oren. He was the Israeli ambassador. And this is the 6-Day War, June 1961, and Making of the Modern Middle East. Excellent book. I'm telling you, I read it. For me, it was absolutely everything new. I just could not believe how much I myself, that I was during this time in Israel and active, they had only one interesting error in this book. One error. Actually, I wrote a note to Michael Oren, but he didn't reply because it was not his error. You see, there are photos, and one of the photos, can you see?
Yes.
Moshe on
Dayan.
the top. Moshe Dayan with a bull. Let me see. I think it's the head of the. Bull. He was the Australian head of military forces in Israel after it. In any case, what's the problem here? The problem was made by a publisher. Only I can discover such thing. They inverted the photo. Yes, because it's really much better this way, but they put the right eye of Dayan is blind, but it's not true.
It's
It's
actually
his
left.
left
Yeah.
eye, But they made it, and when I looked, and I felt something unusual, and I look, and I said, the publisher should be hung. So you have this in the last book, almost the last book, this called the Yom Kippur War, written by an Israeli professor, Abraham Rabinovich. I have just the title. I don't know. I don't know the cover. You see that?
Yeah.
So please write the Yom Kippur War, the epic encounter that transformed the Middle East. So we have six-day war and making of the modern Middle East, and he said of transferred the Middle East, and we are now at the next stage. That is what happened primarily after the uh, Six-Day War and Yom Kippur, what made Israel that really elevated to the degree that became, as I said, beyond. I call it beyond the regional superpower. I'm not calling it superpower, okay, but technologically is Israel superpower. And I will tell you one negative thing that Israel was taken to cleaners by Israeli friends. And you know what they are? High tech. In 19, I'll give you and we finish this lecture today. In 1984, Israel initiated a special program, the Israeli army. They would search for the best students through Israel, and they would give them an offer that they could not refuse. And this actually was the beginning of the modern Israeli technological revolution. They picked up those kids after high school and told them, listen, first of all, we pay you the tuition and some money, and they had some training to become an officer, and you get a lieutenant, and you would have money, and we will assist you if somebody came outside, or this would go through the university and select mathematics, physics, technion, various things, and God knows what else. And you sign a contract 6 or 7 years. That is 3 years studies. You get your Bachelor of Science, and then you work for the army. Mm-hmm. Now, this sounds simple and fair. And I know several children of my friends who went through this. Now, in the army, they work in the top of technological innovations. These are the people who, after 7 years, created endless startups. This what really jolted the Israeli technology. One tiny idea, but simply seeing the value and the importance of it. However, this is not yet the full story. What happened? Those people, I know one kid invented, I even don't remember precisely what, startup got at the age of 25 or something. The startup was called bought, and he got some, I don't know, $700 million. That is, but this is where the problem with the Israeli starts up. They tempted by Americans and others to sell their technology. And this technology becomes really that is, they're being paid at once, ahead of not by slicing it or partially it, but what they do in a way, they're selling 2 cents on a dollar, if not more, you know,
Yeah.
because Israelis don't have this marketing of General Electric, General thing.
They don't have the multinational culture of multinational companies
It's
staying
not
in
a
Israel.
question. It's not a question of culture, experience, and knowledge, and marketing. They cannot mark globally. Yes, you know, Israel marks weapons to Argentina. You don't need. They come to the fair, military fairs, and they can pinpoint with the fingers this. The same thing with India, you know. But in general, to have to develop it and sell it, so they, let's say the Americans bought it, let's say for a group, you know, from 200, 300 to 800, 900 to a billion, you know. But the system, the invention is much more profitable to those who bought it, and they never they never state it was purchased from Israel, you
Mm.
know. So that is where Israel right now, and they trying, you know, once again, you know, Israel now. Okay, I have to stop, otherwise I will tell it. But I will say Israel now wanted to have a in the mid 80s their own fighter jet. The Americans said, yeah, but then uh, you will be competing against us, and we don't want it. And it was
But
chopped.
Israel did develop the Lavi. It was the program was called
Lavi,
Lavi. Lavi. Yeah.
Lavi, yeah. Lavi is a lion,
Yeah.
so close to your heart, right?
Yes.
So it's a lion's yes, heart.
But then
So
Israel killed it under the pressure from
that's
Washington.
right. Well, Israel they choked, you know. Not let's not kill, but that's what happened, and it's a pity. But now Israel is, let's say, F-35. Israeli changed it completely, and there was a big fight with the Pentagon and others that said we cannot allow somebody in their garage improving our super duper
F
fighter, you
35. Yeah.
know. So now that is so now Israel promised not to uh, sell or do anything just for their own usage. And I would like to for you to read a short book by a very very wise guy. It was written 22 years ago. It's called Power. It's called Power, Terror, Peace, and War. It's American grand strategy in a world at risk. It's a very, very timely book. The man is Walter Russell Mead, very, very wise man. He has a weekly column at uh, Wall Street Journal. The man, um, indeed, another one. I don't want to go. I just tell you one thing. He came to Kissinger when they offered him this job some, I don't know, 15 years ago or so. Yes, maybe that 10, 12. And he asked Kissinger, they were friends, colleagues, said, what should I do? Should I leave the academia or should I go to Wall Street Journal to write a weekly column? That is, he can continue to write that thing. But this book is very, very, once again, you know, you have to, I will demand, I don't know. I will give you a test at the end of this seminar, but you must read one book which deals cogently and analytical level, because you have to acquire elements of analysis, of strategic thinking, and not to be dependent on some news or journalists who are mostly 99% are illiterate. I heard that. Never mind. I even not even that season, Hannity made a silly mistake. He
Yeah.
made a silly mistake. Just this week or last week, he was saying, no, Yom Kippur war uh, was gave a wrong date, and then after he corrected himself. They thought that it was in 1976 instead of 1973. But it's a minor. It's a silly
He
mistake. I
misspoke
will.
probably.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, and I'm really, if you want to be sophisticated, and I hope you are, you just have to acquire skills and instrument of analysis. And those three books, this is the fourth book. Get those books, keep them on your table, keep it your night table, any table you find, keep them on the surface and read it. You will see that you will become a solid maverick and not rely of no, never mind it. It's uh, what happened. If it's any network, don't trust them. They are handsome, they are beautiful, they are, but they don't have that thing in their psychic, in their knowledge, and of course, both of them. Uh, uh, Never mind. Wanted to distract. So I think I will.
Yeah, we can wrap up at this point.
Yes, and we shall see you.
In about a week.
Yes. All the
Excellent.
best.
Thank you. Thank you, Ilya.
Yes.
We'll continue next week.
Right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.